Hello again to those of you online as well. So we've got another guest speaker before our office tour. So I know a lot of you are hanging out for the office tour a little bit later. And yeah, we will go past the lolly bar. I still call it the lolly bar, not the candy bar. Haven't been sucked in yet. But we're going to hear it from another James. That's just how it works, right? So funny story. I used to work in a large bank that had the colours black and red. And we once, the guy who sat next to me, who was also a Kiwi, so another great guy, he used to crunch the numbers on the internal data. And when you talk about diversity, right, in workplaces, and I'm talking this was about 10 years ago. And one day, Stefan looked over at me and he said, look, I'm just working with so that in that particular bank, there was about 220 something what were categorized as like senior executives. So the CEO, his direct reports and their direct reports. There's about 225 of them. And Stefan looked over at me and he goes, you know what? You've got more chance of being called Mark or James or Matthew than you do being a female in this group. So there were more people with the name Mark, James, and Matthew than there were females in that particular cohort at that point in time. They have shifted that somewhat, but you don't have to have the name James to be in technology, I think is what we're trying to say here. Now, I like to do a little bit of research on our guest speakers. So yes, I've been stalking you on LinkedIn, which we don't talk about too much. We don't like that around here. I didn't introduce James because he's just he did Bachelor Applied Science, Computing Science. That's just what you do when you get into tech, right? But then I went hunting for you, and the first thing that I saw was military. Is that so? You were in the army, so that's where you from the LinkedIn. You put it in there somewhere, or either that, or it's like a ghost account or something. And then Reuters. Yes. Yeah. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about how you go from the army and Reuters to tech in Australia? Because it was the British Army, Her Majesty's.
Yeah, it's the British Army. I don't know. Do you know this? Do you know I was in the British Army? James Ross is my boss.
Yeah.
But I tend to...
He will know when you get him in a headlock at some stage, yeah.
And it makes all sense now. He's because, that makes sense. So I guess I was a student and you would know. And at the time, I was very much wanted to save the world and do something for the world. I also wanted to be very physical with my career, and the armed forces, and particularly Royal Engineers, who would often, there was a component of the Royal Engineers who would often go into war-torn nations and help those nations, and that's what.
So how did you hear about this? Was it one of those classic where the bus rolls up to school and they take you through? Here's what it looks like when you join the army.
Maybe also my brother was in the army as well, right. And I come from a pretty rough town in northern England, and so going into the armed forces was a thing that a lot of kids did.
Yeah.
So it was kind of tradition. It was kind of not unusual for me to go into the armed forces. And I followed my brother's footsteps as well. And the armed forces really, really changed him for the better, and took this kind of ne'er-do-well and changed him for the better. And I went, I kind of want a bit of that too. And so those are for all the reasons. But the armed forces are great, but I don't think I suit the armed forces.
Yeah, okay.
And so,
well, James and me with our long hair, we don't get into the armed forces, so we couldn't do it.
Yes.
But then that's led you to this career that you've got today, and I know you're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah.
About roles in tech. But so I'm going to hand over to James Wright, our engineering director of HIRA. So round of applause. So. But maybe if I could just get you to explain as well this term HIRA, because we tend to use a lot of jargon around this place. So sorry, please pull us up on that if we do it. But HIRA, tell us about HIRA.
So if you look at the Seek websites, there's basically just there's kind of two sides to that website. It's a bit like REA. You're either selling a house or you're trying to buy a house, right? Car sales, selling cars, trying to buy cars. So we have a side which is for candidates or job seekers. So which is traditionally, if you go on to seek.com.au, that's what you'll see. So what job do you want to search for? But there's a flip side to it, which is organizations or hirers or advertisers. And they're the people who are searching for employees. And I help with that side. I help with the organizational side. So if you're interested in hiring a career advisor or someone at your school, you would go onto Seek and go onto the employer section, and you would fill out some details around what the job ad is, where the location is, maybe the salary, whether it's remote, part-time, or some aspects of that. And then we use that to advertise that on the Seek site and even off the Seek site as well. So recommendations and maybe even onto other sites to bring the best candidates to your organization. So I help with the managing that side of the business. And like I said, James is my boss. He also thinks that I look like Jerry Seinfeld with my get up, with these white trainers. So maybe I won't wear the white trainers again. Maybe it'll be part of my performance review.
So tell us, what's the deal with roles in tech, James?
Oh, so I think I'm being asked to move on. All right. So James has talked a little bit about current, I guess. I'm kind of going to be a bit more future gazing. So please pull me up where you think I'm going awry. All right, so I'll talk about, first of all, what I'm seeing in my workplace. So I manage about 180 people, mainly engineers, BAs, range of ages from early 20s all the way into the 40s, different demographics, KL, New Zealand, all parts of Australia, and different skill sets. And so then I'll talk specifically about AI, because I think there's a growing interest in that, and I want to equip you all with a better understanding of what AI is, but also some of the implications for that for the workplace. Then I'll talk about skills, specific skills that might be a sensible juncture or off point for those changes. And then there'll be a bit of time for Q&A if I get time for that. All right, so 5 trends. So broadly, what I'm seeing in my workplace are trends that are coming through at different rates, and they're still got to play forward. So if you think through these trends, if you're thinking for future, you can see today what the future is by identifying those key trends. So AI is a prevalent one, and it's coming very quickly. So that's an aspect to AI. I think it has certain constraints around it, but it's coming quite rapidly, and I'll talk to you all a bit about that. Data. So we've probably heard of concepts of big data. It's bigger now. It's enormous now, and there's regulation around that. Online threats, they're growing. Also, we've got remote working. I think that's still got to play through more. There's some trends and forces there. And finally, workplace expectations is definitely one that I'm seeing as well. So let's go through each one of those 5. So how I set these slides up is kind of a student relevant example on the right-hand side, so that you might be able to replay back to students in a way that they might understand. And some key statistics that should highlight some of the aspects we're talking about. AI, very fast-moving, replicates human brain, and it's very accessible because of that. And it's becoming quite a powerful tool in workplaces. But what I want to leave you with is that you've all dealt with this before in some ways, right? So we've had the Industrial Revolution has come through, and that's changed the economy, and then globalization came through, and then the PC came in, and so Excel came in, PowerPoints, Word, ERPs, all these systems came in about 40 years ago, and they fundamentally changed how workplaces work. And you were all here at the same time, and they changed really aspects of in and around cognition. They didn't really change the agrarian aspects. They didn't really change the industrial aspects. They changed workplaces and roles that dealt with cognition. And so PC era for me is like just part one, and AI is part two. But you all dealt with part one, right? So I want you to be confident you've got the skills to deal with this change for part two as well, right? So yes, we didn't know 40 years ago how Excel or spreadsheets or Word or these new tools were going to change the workplace, but you dealt with that, and you helped your students through it. And I think it'll be the same with AI. And in particular, AI is in the realm of cognition. So it's helping with where we think about language and where we think about workplaces and jobs that are predominantly cognitive. Another important aspect, and I'll touch on it because I've got a section on it later, is we've got to really think hard about, or this concept about, task versus job versus role. So roles have the certain role, like a lawyer. There'll be certain jobs. There'll be a lawyer, there'll be a contract lawyer. And that contract lawyer, for example, might have certain tasks that they do. And some of those tasks will be more routine than others. Some of them will be more creative than others. Some of them will be more scripted than others. And it's important because AI will play a greater role in some of those tasks, but much less in others. And so if you want to understand this space and how it might have implications for roles of your students going forward, you got to kind of understand this implication, this aspect around the balance of tasks. So I'll talk about that in the next section. But AI is definitely coming through. I'm using it a massive amount. And interestingly, probably one of the implications is that who will benefit most from advance in cognition? The 21-year-old brain or the 51 or 61-year-old brain? I would say it's the 51, 60-year-old brain, right? So they might stay in the workplace longer. And then that might have implications, or will have implications for promotions, advancements of students coming through. Next one, data, really good statistic. We talked about big data forever, right? 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. That is massive. It's enormous. And businesses are trying to deal with this. So there's different forces coming through. Governments, consumers are becoming, and we can see it at Seek, a lot more sensitive about privacy. And government are responding to that with regulation. And so what we're finding is that we're bringing in lots of people who understand this space, and lots of businesses are doing the same. And so we find that this space, this data space, privacy, the regulation around it, the use of data, the analysis of the data, very transferable skills. If you understand the environment of privacy, you can apply that into any business. So a really interesting trend that we're seeing is the explosion of data, and businesses trying to make the most of the data that they're capturing. And again, for students, same algorithm that is recommending the next TikTok is the same algorithm that doctors are diagnosing diseases. Online threats, bit of an uncertain geopolitical world we're dealing with right now. You can probably see that playing through. And what we're seeing is more and more online penetration and attacks. Good start. Every 6 minutes, there's a major online incident in Australia. Also, really good start. I didn't realize this, but online scams are really affecting young people as well. Massive increase in online scams. So your students will be probably very aware of this. And so we're building out in lots of organizations. It's very hard to be an organization that doesn't have to deal with this. So there's lots of roles. Australia's projected 30,000, 25 to 30,000 shortfall in the number of cybersecurity professionals. And it's a really interesting space. It isn't just geeks. because you need to do, now it's human. So we've got quite good at responding to online threats, and now it's scams. And that's very human. So then it's about change management, and it's about changing people. And so it's not just geeks in a room, something like that. There's a really interesting space, very high paid as well. So your students might be well-minded to think about a career in this space. Remote working, I can definitely see that there's two forces, of course. People are much more interested in working remotely and the flexibility and the autonomy and agency that gives them. But the countervailing forces of business is trying to get them back into the office. We all see that. For me, my teams collaborate, communicate, problem solve far better when they're in the office. They build emotional connections far better when they're in the office. So we see a massive benefit from people being here, within hugging distance is what I like to say. Offshoring, you've heard that forever, right? But really, I think there's a little bit more of this to play. If you are remote and all you are a little box on a screen to me, and I don't have an emotional connection with you, why couldn't I replace you with someone cheaper in an offshore? So I think there's still a bit to play through with remote working. And you can see 10% of Australian jobs specify work from home. Probably a bit less. I reckon that's what they specify, but I reckon through negotiation, there'll be probably more than that. Workplace expectations, definitely seeing this with the next generation, and this will play through much more slowly as this generation comes through and comes into management and really can make an influence. But that's a great stat. The projection, I know I've changed jobs a little bit, but it's expected that your students will change roles and jobs a lot more frequently going forward. Mental health is becoming much more prevalent in the workplace, and SEEK, and as well as a lot of other organizations, are building out our mental health resilience and our understanding around mental health within management as well, just to deal with that. Career pathways, the expectations on being promoted is true. It's very much there. And so the expectations of students being able to progress through very quickly is very much there. So those are what I'm seeing as the major trends in a corporate like SEEK, in an organization that's dealing with a range of demographics. And these are the things that I think still have got to play through. And I've kind of ordered them in how quickly I think they'll play through. So AI is going to come in quite quickly and have quite a large impact. Data, that explosion of data in the last few years, we've still got to work out how we deal with that much data and get the most value from a society out of it. Online threats, that's probably, with the advent of AI tools, we're all a bit worried about these nefarious, often state-based actors who now have access to AI tools. Remote working still probably could play through, and workplace expectations is that Gen Zs comes through. So let me walk you through now just a bit more detail about AI. Now, how I landed this, I don't know how much you know about AI. So hopefully I'll stretch some, but hopefully I won't go over the heads of too many, but we'll see. But what I want to do is forearm you, give you enough information about what AI is, so that you can speak more confidently with it, with your students. So I'll talk about AI, and then I'll talk about 3 implications for careers. So AI, so this is where I'll get a little bit geeky, and I might get starry-eyed, because I did AI just like James did. I did it at university 14 years ago, and at the time it was kind of the same, which was like, oh, it's all a bit fancy, a bit weird, but it models the human brain. So that's why. So the implications there That's why it's so scarily accessible. That's when you interact with it, it's like, wow, this is like interacting almost with a human, because it does model a human brain. And it's trained like a human brain. So they have things called back propagation. So it actually learns. It goes, okay, you didn't do that correctly, so don't do that again. You did that correctly, do that more frequently. And interestingly, it's learns by modeling how humans actually think about language. There was actually two trains of thought. Language was either I knew a word and it was a bit like a facet of a word was stored in your brain. And the other train of thought was I knew a word and it was related to other words. And that was the one that didn't have the most backing, but it's turned out to be the one that's correct. So how humans learn language is not like a dictionary. It's that we relate words to other words. Pattern recognition. So that's actually where it started. Kind of really took off in about 2011 with image recognition. And that's why you still see it in medical spaces, really good at identifying cancers and things like that. Image recognition it's very good at. A large corpus of learning, basically the internet and books, just huge, humongous amounts of stuff. But there's a bad thing about that, right? It's the internet, right? So it's just learned from the internet. So it's learned from us and what we are and all our foibles, right? So and it kind of mimics that a little bit too. Why now? There've been a few breakthroughs, kind of AlexNet 12 years ago, Transformers, which was OpenAI a few years ago, but really it's just incremental. It's 50 years started incrementally, just improving. They didn't have large language models. They started with small ones, and they were actually kind of interesting. And it was only until they got to a certain scale that it was like, oh, wow, this is starting to be like a human. And then they added more scale, and it was like, oh, this is like a smart human. So it was just very incremental. It's quite general in nature, although there is some specification like those medical devices. They're getting specializations now in like the legal space. I know the law companies really jumped on this early days because they think it can learn lots of contracts, it can learn lots of things that they have and help with legal teams. It's not conscious though, it doesn't dream. It doesn't have a dream about world domination. Right, it kind of just sits there and it's kind of not alive. You have to trigger it to respond. It still needs a human to trigger it to respond. And we're thinking that AGI, long way off. We're not at that level of human technology, and the current way we're doing language models is not going to get us to this singularity, to this world where.
Sorry, can I just get a jargon check on AGI?
Yeah, sorry. Nice one. Artificial general intelligence. So it means it's like, so if you hear AGI, artificial general intelligence, like human. Right? So does it dream? Does it have a conscious?
So
yeah.
That would be allowed to go ahead, AGI?
Oh, God. Oh. I don't think you'll be able to stop it. So we've got kind of sovereignty to China, US. They're out competing each other. I don't know who would stop. They'd have to come together. They're not best friends at the moment. And they'd have to jointly say, we don't want to. So I don't think that's going to happen. And you don't necessarily have to fear it, right? You don't have to fear it. Yeah, there's sovereignty. So this might, to be honest, it will be slowed because there's sovereignty aspects and typically there's no free flowing of information anymore because you've got two blocks and they'll slow. It's incredibly expensive and energy consuming. So that will probably slow things down. People tend to be quite conservative. That will slow things down. So it'll be quick, but there'll be natural forces that slow it down, I'd say. All right, I better get going. Sorry. 3 implications. New careers. Woohoo, awesome. Already today, 1% of roles on Seek are brand new, all to do with this. And you can expect that to just continue. Lots of interesting new careers in the data space. And because some of the latest advances mean these AI tools are a lot smaller and cheaper, even smaller companies can now start using them. Traditionally, like we came with Seek and we went, oh, this is pretty expensive. We'll let Microsoft do that and just use them. But now they're getting quite cheap and small. And it's like it might change the advent and the philosophy that we approach this. So it might be smaller companies now actually start using these with their own data. But they'll need people to do that. They'll need people to build those systems up. That's a key point. So right at the bottom left, when I was talking about tasks, certain roles, administrative roles, have got more tasks that are routine tasks, scripted tasks. They can be automated away by AI. Things that aren't, construction, right? Farmers, very unlikely to be automated by AI. Yeah, so they're protected. Yeah, yeah. So this is that. So the chart on the right-hand side is just showing AI-related ads on Seek, and it's growing in the last 8 years. I think that's showing it's 1%. I thought it'd be a little bit more, but it's still 1% of all jobs, new jobs, is still substantial. What we're not seeing adverts for lawyers who need AI skills or medical professions who need AI skills. We're not seeing that yet. Might come, but just not. This is that point. It's assisting rather than replacing. So there's about 40% of all roles in our economy that are manual roles. You're just not going to have AI coming onto construction sites. Trades, very protected. Right? Then you have another set of skills, roles, another about 45% that are a mix of routine and non-routine. And what will happen is the routine will just get automated and it'll free them up to do the higher value stuff. It'll be more interesting. It'll be brilliant. There's probably about 5% of roles that are very routine that will get automated. But they're probably roles that we should automate, right? Certain sales roles that are scripted, customer service roles, scripted, probably will get automated. Salesforce is a big company that's investing heavily in this space for good reason. But we know 60% of occupations today have 30% of the tasks suitable to be replaced by tools, AI tools. Right? So it's quite a lot that will benefit from this. They won't have to do the humdrum routine tasks. A bit similar to the doctor, right? So the doctor now, instead of creating an app, you could just get an agent to do that, or an AI agent. So this is a bit of a difficult chart, but really but my feedback is too hard, so I need to explain it. So this is from the RBA, and it goes back about 40 years. And the RBA, they look at cognitive roles and manual roles. And they look at routine and non-routine. And the thing you want to take from this chart is the last 40 years, we've had non-routine roles increasing. So routine has been going down. So globalization's come through. So we've sent routine tasks to China. Service industry's taken off. So you've got an increase in non-routine. That trend will continue. And that's what I kind of mean. We've been dealing with for the last 4 years. You've been dealing with this for the last 40 years. It's a trend you know. You know that we've been automating routine tasks, manual routine tasks for a long time because of globalization. And we're going to start automating cognitive routine tasks more. But we've already started. The PC generation did that. The PC with email, with Excel. This is just part 2 of that. It might accelerate a bit, but I want to leave you with confidence that you know how to deal with this. Less impacted careers, high social interaction. Marriage counselors, you're not going to do that via an AI. Negotiator, you're not going to do that via an AI. Very high social interaction, empathy, it's human. Physical dexterity, farmers, trades, surgeons, very protected. So about 40% of roles we think on Seek and in the economy, very protected from AI. All right, how much time have I got? Half an hour. Oh, sweet. I think I'm about on time. So, so the last section is just a bit more about kind of skills, a deep dive into kind of skills. I should do a skill, which is learning how to use this better, I think. You don't need to have AI skills. This thing on the right-hand side is really good. And it's how I think about using AI in my workplace. And if you want to take anything from today, take that right-hand one. Because I think someone said, how do we get people more into technology? Well, how do you get people more into AI? Is using tools like ChatGPT. Businesses will start to increasingly ensure that they can use the ChatGPTs with their own data. We do at Seek. And you've got to just get very good at interacting with it because it will increase your productivity substantially. And there's these 5 stages where you can do so. So first one is just this one today, right? Just a bit more awareness about AI, where it comes from, what it's kind of good at, what it might not be so good at. Second one is what's called prompt engineering. But if you use ChatGPT, it's what you put in. It's the question you put in. But it can get really more and more and more and more sophisticated. I'm in a book club, and we've just read The Beach from the 90s. Yeah, Alex Garland. And we've got to write, our book club has got to write the 200-300 word précis of The Beach. And there's a guy there who's brilliant. He speaks very eloquently. And he said, okay, I'll write this thing. I think he's a writer or he's a journalist. And for fun, I did it in AI. And it was really rubbish. It was like just clearly slop, right? It was just clearly rubbish. But then I actually asked the AI, at the tool I was using, give me a good prompt to get something that was novel, unique. What are the things? And it gave me lots of ideas of what to ask it to get better responses that were more creative, more novel, using metaphors, similes, different structures, hooks. And what I got back was brilliant. It was amazing. I was like, wow, I'm not going to show it to them because it was, or maybe I should. So getting good at this is going to be important for your students. So it's not just tell me this. You actually have to work with it. So you have to know it a bit better than just tell me X, Y, Z. It's called prompt engineering. Then there's the evaluation, the output assessment. And that's what, like I was saying before, this has been trained on the internet. It's been trained on Reddit, right? It's been trained on everything, good and bad. You've got to evaluate the outcome here. And you've heard about hallucinations where it kind of makes things up. Interesting side, have I gone enough? Interesting in that, so do humans, absolutely. Ask any policeman who asks for a description of what happened. They'll tell you humans are not that accurate, right? But what we do is we do this thing called think before you speak. So we go, is that really right? Was he wearing red? Oh no, it was more salmon, something like that, right? And these tools do the same because they're modeled on humans, and humans are error prone, and so they hallucinate. It's just we pick it up with them. We don't pick it up with people. But they've started to do this thing, which is essentially think before you speak. In AI terms, it's called reasoning. So if you ever see reasoning, just means think before you speak. And so it's a way of filtering out these hallucinations. Anyway, but that's going to be critical. And there's a good example there. A future HR professional who understands AI screening tools can better ensure fair hiring practices and know when human judgment should override automated recommendations. They would only do that if they knew how to assess the output critically. And so they'd be better at doing that if they knew kind of how it worked a little bit too. So creative AI collaboration, workflows, a bit like how you might set up Excel, or you might have different word templates. That's what I mean by workflows. And it's the same thing with AI. I have different chats. I might have a JR chat, a boss chat, right? And it will know all the context of what I've been speaking about to my boss for the last few weeks. And so getting just understanding of how to bring that into your own work is going to be quite important. And the last one, that ethical AI application, recognizing biases, ensuring fairness. So someone, I think it was this guy called Sam Altman, who's the head of OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. He said something really interesting. So comparing Google to ChatGPT. So Google was amazing, right? You came in, you asked it, and it gave you the answer, but it didn't really give you the answer. It just gave you 110,000 documents to read, right? Now you could go and read those documents, and you could come up with your truth. Right? But what ChatGPT and these other tools do is they come up with their truth, right? So now in society, we're going to be now influenced by the algorithms that's set by a company in California, because it's their truth of interpreting those 110,000 documents. And I thought that was really interesting. So recognizing that bias is going to be important as well. So these are just tools, but that's, I think, a really good set of workflow or things to think about with your students to get really good at using these tools productively in the workplace. By the way, is there any questions? I don't know. Should I stop for questions or not? No. Is that yes?
No. We can. Yeah.
Any
questions in the?
You asked a question. Any questions on this?
Yep. Let me get the mic.
Sorry, I should have done this while I've gone along.
It might be just more of a statement, but I would just interested to know what you think about this. As I was hearing a HR hiring person the other day say when they were looking through resumes and CVs and cover letters that as soon as they see lots of Zs, they assume that it's AI generated. And I asked the question, I said, are you saying, should we be advertising, telling people to make sure that their dictionaries are on English or US? Because, yeah, I just thought, how are they going to start defining being what's a real person and what's, making assumptions about?
All right, this is really interesting because you've come to the right space. You've come to Seek to ask that question. We're thinking about this. And it goes further. The Zs is because it comes from California and it's American spelling. Right, I'm English, so I'm forever adding O's and S's, right? But I haven't gone into it. But there's this concept of agents, right? So bear with me for a second. It's where you can have a bit more of an autonomous system, that will use AI on your behalf. But you could have an agent for a job-seeking agent. Right? We're fully expecting this to come about, totally. But that could really bombard this marketplace with lots of job applications. Right? And so we're also thinking about agents on the hirer side. Hiring. So you have a hiring agent. You don't have a recruiter anymore. You have a hiring agent. And because they're computers, you can have 5 of them. You can have 500 of them, right? So we are thinking about how to deal with that. And the concept is trust. I think I briefly mentioned it with data and trust before. So trust will become very important in an online space, and especially in a space where you get an advent of independent human-like actors that are quite good at mimicking humans. How we deal with that, I don't know yet, but we know it's going to be there. We know it's going to be something that businesses will have to deal with. But also it's kind of a little bit exciting as long as it's done ethically, as long as it's done well. It could be quite exciting that, wow, I've got this tool that's scouring the internet on my behalf to allow me to spend more time with my family. Because job seekers, just for a second, they're often quite desperate, right? They really are. And they spend a lot of their day, it's a job to look for a job. And so they're not spending time with their family. If you had an agent to do that and do it well, great. That sounds really good. So I think there's challenges. So I went a little bit futuristic with your question. So I think there's going to be challenges. There's going to be turbulence as we get used to this technology. But I think done well, it could really advent and benefits job seekers, hirers, and society. Specifically to your question, like I said before, AI is a little bit sloppy at the moment, unless you're good at making it good. So if someone's not, then maybe you don't want to hire them. And if AI is going to be useful in your workplace, you probably do want to hire someone who's gone through those 5. The resume, how important is going to be the resume in the advent of AI? I know on the hirer side, we actually have tools, AI tools to help you write a job ad. So why not AI tools to help you write a cover letter? And why not? If you're going to use AI tools in your workplace, then get good at it. So I don't have a brilliant answer. I just have we think it's going to move in this direction, and trust will be a really interesting aspect. Go for it. Sorry.
I wanted to add to what she was saying there, and just saying that, I don't think Zs are the problem. I think what's the problem is individuals understanding what skills they have, how they transfer, and how to articulate that. And that's what AI doesn't do very well. And that's where the individual needs to learn that skill, how to get that across.
Totally, 100%. I think I talk later. There's a quote here, which is essentially, as these tools come in and take away routine tasks, the element of what makes us human and uniquely human becomes more valuable. So therefore, then being able to describe how you're uniquely human becomes really valuable. Yes, totally. And the tool we use at the moment is this tool called CV and a resume. That might change. That might change. Oh, sorry, you're on.
Hey, James. And thanks to James. The 2 James have been fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a question about.
I'm Seinfeld James.
Oh,
yeah, Seinfeld
okay.
James. Yeah.
Seinfeld James.
Yeah.
So just actually going back to the previous James's slide, I remember there was a bar chart, right, with all the different types of job roles, and there was one that was AI. There was one that was AI.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting to hear what you're saying here, James, with how AI is kind of embedding and infusing itself in all these type of roles.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about you also mentioned about how there are dedicated roles where you have engineers customizing and using data to maybe personalize and build your own custom AI tools and systems. I'm just wondering whether you can talk a little bit to that. How much of what percentage of people might be doing that? Do you foresee a growth in that area? Because that's a different set of skills. That isn't just about using AI, but it's actually understanding how AI works, how you can formulate data and massage data. So maybe you can talk a little bit to that about projections in that area.
Really good question. So I was talking to Seek's got an economist, used to work at the RBA. So I was talking to him about this. And he's saying businesses are quite conservative when it comes to technology. But when I talked about China, and there was a word called DeepSeek, and and I said that it's become cheaper, much cheaper and smaller to deploy these tools. So what's happened, why that's created a lot of press, is previously these tools were just for the big boys, just for the Microsofts, right? The Facebooks. But this tool kind of means it's for the us and the smaller businesses. But you'll need people to come in and configure that, right? And that's where these new tools, so I think there was a concept of like, is software engineers going to disappear? And James talked about a principle: if you make something cheaper, you just drive demand. It's likely there's just going to be a lot more software, and so a lot more software to manage, create, configure, and so it will change the nature of software engineering, but I doubt it will go away, and maybe become more valuable as well, and therefore they can command a higher premium, higher salary because of it. So yes, I reckon that is absolutely the way it's going to go. We've already seen it with law companies, law firms. They're bringing in their own AI tools. They think it's going to be very valuable. Why not companies like Seek and even smaller, that you have a tool for a manufacturing company that's been trained and learnt all about your manufacturing process and all about everything to do with the machines. And so if you want to ask and know anything about the business, you go to that tool because it's read everything about it, right? And so then it can interpret that and come back to, and that's more viable now because essentially the cost is dramatically reducing. So just in terms of cost, it's really interesting. The cost of using ChatGPT has reduced 250-fold in the last couple of years. I don't know, that's a lot, right? It's not 2.5%. That's not even 250%. I think that's like 25,000% or something. It's like a lot. And so you can see it's reducing in cost, and you will see an uptick in the utilization of it. And therefore you'll need people to do that.
James, just before, we've just got a question online as well. But also to that point, what we're starting to see emerge internally as we use AI more is the skill that humans bring to connect others with the AI. So you don't need to be an AI expert in that, but sharing about prompting and in team meetings going, let's have a look at all the work that we do. What could AI really help us with? So there's a lot of that work going on, and it's an emerging industry. How do you be the conduit between a workplace or a job role and the technology, trying to make it more accessible to people, help people to understand it? I think that's going to be huge and emerging as well. The question we got online is, we talk about a shortfall in tech roles, e.g. cybersecurity, but how many of those roles are for entry-level individuals? Any advice for entry-level applicants in some of those tech industry roles?
Brilliant. Actually, cybersecurity have done an awful lot of work on that. And they have code camps. They have camps around Australia to I think they're called Find the Flag, Capture the Flag, sorry. So that's actually an industry that's done very well to become much more prevalent and open and accessible to people who are 16, 17, 18, really interested. Because that's actually the type of mindset that they're really interested in as well. So cybersecurity industry, the Australian industry, have done a great deal. So I would say recommend them going along to some of the little camps and meetups that popped up around cybersecurity. But I think you're talking more generally about how to get involved as well. James talked about creating an app. So I started programming when I was 12, a bit similar to James. Just got a computer and I was just like, I love this, and so just needed to program. Just creating your own app to do something that you're interested in. Ask them what are they interested in. Create an app to do that, right? Create an app to show your mates or your friends something around that. Go away, YouTube, and creating an app, and they'll find it. They'll be able to. They know how to use YouTube, right? And so I reckon it's very simple, but that's the entry in. There's so much material online aimed at 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, someone just getting in for the first time. I was using something called Cursor AI just the other week, just using YouTube, and this guy was saying, yeah, it's called vibe coding. You've never kind of done it before, and I'll take you through how to do it. And it was just a 15 minutes YouTube, and I'm like, sweet, I now know how to use it. So can you students. Very simple. So cybersecurity in particular, look it up. There's probably a little events in your region. In Melbourne, there is. In Sydney, totally. But programming and in particular, just create your own app and just go away and look online on how to do that. If you're interested in it, if you get a buzz from it, well, then do that as a career.
Can I just to build on that as well, is it's almost as if talking to students about maybe creating a portfolio. So like graphic designers create themselves portfolios to show here's the kind of thing I can do. It's the same thing with tech. So like James is saying, get an idea about something, see if you can go away and build it and create yourself your own portfolio. If you can show people the output rather than just on a resume, oh, I've done this. So the short course helps, or the course that you can find online, it definitely does help. But then what have you created from it? So building out that portfolio. And just really quickly, I'll tell you a story about someone called Billy who used to work here. He's a software developer now, but he started off in sales. He was just really interested in getting out of sales, and then was in a tech company. So he started learning how to code just by spending some time with some other developers. He did a 6-month short course. So just 6 months in his own time, got enough understanding, but then did a couple of things internally here, Seek, just by shadowing someone. And so got to build some things in AWS and built a portfolio. He then went on to get into a graduate program with one of the top banks in Australia because he had a portfolio. And compared to someone who had studied for 4 years, they had a lot of theory, but he was able to say, actually, I've built this thing. Like I can do that. I can show you what I can do. So the experience that comes from creating things, building out those experiences as being tangible things is really helpful. So maybe start thinking it as a portfolio. I think we had a question over there, and then we'll come down the front.
Thanks. I'm just circling back to the AI screening tools for HR professionals.
Yep.
And just, I mean, I know for a long time big employers have been screening resumes and discarding them, based on certain things. How important is it for young people to have a good resume? And do you have a sense of how many employers these days are screening resumes and not actually reading them themselves?
Yeah.
And on top of that, do you have any good examples of resumes for young people that you could, point everyone here to?
Good resumes. I could point. We could probably try and dig. Certainly, we've got material.
We do have some
online.
templates.
Yeah.
But also you want to understand what the technology is trying to do in the ATS service. here's my job ad, I need to match it with this resume. So one of the simplest things you can do is do the work on your resume to use those words that they're using, so to mirror it. And ChatGPT is pretty good at being able to help you identify which words in this job ad should I transfer to my resume and start to pull that through. But yeah, computers are reading a lot of those resumes. But for a job seeker, we always say, look, if you're just trying to apply for absolutely everything, it's going to be hard for you to tailor that. You want to be really thinking about, why do I want to go for this job? The resume just gets you in the door, but then you have to sell the story about why you, what interests you about this. So taking the time to really think deliberately about that, and maybe using some AI to help you with it is a first step. But look, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that your teams are involved with, right, James, about how we help hirers to read all of those hundreds of emails.
So he's right. There have been tools for a long time. They were quite rudimentary to begin with. They were like, has it got this word in it? Right. I think they've become a lot more sophisticated. They tend to be in organizations, Gareth mentioned ATSs. So those are software systems that big corporates and government tend to use just to accept a lot of applications and filter through. We tend to use something called search rather than that. So, but it's still based on word matching, but it's not then excluding, it's more prioritizing. So people will pop up to the top rather than not be shown at all, that kind of thing. AI is probably just going to get better at interpreting. So rather than just a keyword, it would know that that's what you're talking about. So it would probably actually be a bit better at being a little bit more human about it, right? How I would respond is just like traditionally, try to get in the mind of that employer. What are they looking for? Really read that application. Get in the mind of what they're looking for, and shift and tailor your resume to that. Don't use a standard resume that you send to everyone. Look at the role that you really want, and then tailor your resume to that, rather than it's a volume game, same resume to 50. That's the way to get. It's tough though, job seeking. There's people who really find it difficult. And yeah, we're here to, we empathize with that. And so I get up every day to try and help with that. But yeah, that's the best thing to do. And interestingly, thinking about it in a human way. So how to combat that tool in some respects is a human response. Empathize with what they want, and then structure your resume in a way that will speak to that.
We're really pushing up on time.
Sorry.
I've got two more questions that I want to go to before we head off on our tour. So I'm going to come down the front first.
I just wanted to follow up on the whole entry job level conversation before, because I feel like I would just really would like an indication of your grasp of the current job landscape, of how many entry level jobs there actually are in terms of opportunities for people that have studied something to do in tech or developing or programming. But then you said, like in the other talk we heard, with 2 years of experience, you can get a job which already goes into 6 figures. That kind of gap, how do you get the experience? Are there many opportunities out there that if you do have your portfolio and you went to camp at 16 and then you did study it, are there many entry-level jobs for you to actually get that initial experience to then get those bigger, higher jobs? Or is that, because that's how I also interpreted the question before, that like, oh, we need more of these people, but then there are not many entry-level job opportunities.
Yeah, unfortunately, those kind of opportunities are a little bit the whim of the economy. And when the economy is doing well, you would know, right? When the economy is doing well, businesses tend to invest more and be more ambitious and bring on more graduates. When the economy is a little bit more depressed and people are a little bit risk averse, those things shrink a little bit, right? So it is the aspect of the economy. in technology, it's a very high demand role, right? So you very much want them. There's always demand for even ones that have the potential to be good, right? And so just the economics of it, yes, I would love everyone that I hire to day one could be like amazing. But you actually, because they're so valuable and you need to retain them, then you're willing to invest in technology. Therefore, you're willing to take someone who's not got the domain knowledge or the specific skills. Maybe different to another industry, an aspect. And the other one that James talked about was that, well, they probably have skills that your internal staff don't, because they're much more open to new things, right? So actually they, and that's been prevalent throughout my career. How I really got into it was learn the latest, coolest tech. And I was I could easily get a job. And because people who are a bit more in industry, a bit more long in the tooth, they didn't want to. It's really hard. You have to go, this massive book or whatever. So I think this is an industry that is prone for those economic reasons to bring on a lot of younger staff. And I have them. I have a lot of people in their 20s. And that pyramid is very wide at the bottom with people in their 20s. And I just think that's an aspect of the technology industry because of their value and because you hire them for what they could potentially do. So with someone, we were talking about half-life, right? So if you're essentially the skills you have decay and half of what you know today is not very valuable in 2 years' time, why would I pay for that, right? So what I pay for is their potential to learn. And that's a 20-year-old, not a 40-year-old. So there's just an economic aspect of technology, which mean that's why we have a lot of people in their 20s in the tech space.
Thanks, James. I might go one more question.
Okay.
Thanks. Just a really quick one. Just circling back to you mentioned the resume to be specific, to the job advertised. Yeah. I would have thought that was standardized, but then the cover letter would be more specific to the selection criteria for that job. Only because I was on yesterday with my son and he applied for about 3 on Seek.
Yeah.
And we did it that way. Is that the wrong?
I don't want to say wrong. Increasingly, few people are asking for cover letters. Anecdotally, even the ones who do aren't using or aren't valuing them that much anymore. The resume is the key to the interview, right? So tailor the resume, and that's its job, to get you into nothing more. And think about it that way too. What?
Verification.
Verification.
So,
oh yes. My boss is telling me. My boss. So the other aspect is, I talked about trust before, and how it's going to be much more prevalent as a concept going forward. We got to trust your students as well. They say they can do something. We've got to be able to trust that. And so there's some sort of verifiability. We've always had it. We've always had reference checks, right? But it's now needing to extend a little bit more. We've always had gives you driver's license, reference checks. It's going to extend a little bit more, I think, just in the advent of a world that's probably a little bit more needing of trust. Do you want to add to that, JR?
Yeah, one of the ways that we suggest people stand out, because there really is, for some jobs, there's just a sea of applications. It really is hard for the hirers if they're getting 400, 500 applications for a role, right? And so we make money by charging hirers to place the job ads, and we don't charge the candidates. But candidates can stand out by putting in more effort. So, for example, if there's a job and it requires, for example, a driver's license and working with children check, these sorts of things, after you apply for these roles, sometimes you will get an email saying, hey, if you want to stand out, step this way and sign up for this extra feature on Seek called Seek Pass, and you can go through extra steps. So it's more effort for you. But if you put in your driver's license and actually validate it and put in your working with children check stuff, and that gets validated, we will go to the effort of actually validating that you have that credential, and then we'll indicate that to the hirer. So what happens is 300 people might apply for the job, but only 20 might go to the trouble of putting in that extra effort to stand out. And they're the 20 the hirer is going to see and say, thank you for making my life easier. So the strong recommendation is to put in the extra effort that other people don't to stand out. That's what I want to say.
Good point.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, James. I know we've got a little bit more of your slides there, but we are going to make these available to everyone following today. Yep.
Just one thing. Right at the very bottom, I've just got some links. I think you've actually been asking today, right?
Yeah.
So those are links to help people learn the stuff on the right. Yeah. So take those down, hand them out. Yeah.
And you'll be hanging around for some lunch as well. So if people want to grab you and say good day, you can.